Hey everybody, welcome to Studio 64. My name's David. I've been searching the interzones for more science, space and tech news to share with you. Came across this at sciencenorway.no. This should be very interesting indeed. Yes, the remarkable find. Archaeologists in Norway discover the remains of a gauntlet on the seabed. What is this precious steel glove doing in the sea? I say so. I ask the same question. Yes, the gauntlet would never have been left lying in the street in medieval Oslo. This is an extremely expensive object, says Harvard Hegdal. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Yes, now since 2019, the Norwegian Institute for Cultural Heritage, NIKU, has been excavating Bispevika in Oslo. The area has never been investigated by archaeologists before, making the discovery special. Now, before 1624, the area was part of Oslo Harbour. Now, archaeologists have found the remains of a gauntlet in this area. It's not just any gauntlet, but one made of iron. It's made from it's from the Middle Ages. It is very rare. Interesting. Yeah, the imprint is all that remains of the iron gauntlet. Yeah, so little bits left and basically, just the shadow of it. Fascinating. Expensive lost property. Yes, in the 1500s, during the Renaissance, we find nails everywhere in the city. In the Middle Ages, it seems that iron was used, reused and reforged, so that you find almost no remains of it in the city, says Harvard Hegdal. Again, not a scientist myself. I just love all science and find it fascinating, and archaeology is one of my favourites. Yeah, look at this. Here he is over here. Archaeologist Harvard Hegdal demonstrates how the gauntlet would have fit. Interesting. Interesting indeed. Here's an archaeologist at NIKU and the excavations project manager. He says this discovery is special. Yeah, so the gauntlet would never have been left lying in the streets in medieval Oslo. This is an extremely expensive object. An ordinary person would never own something like this. The only way you can find things like this is if they're buried or lost in some way on the seabed. No one could have gotten hold of it, he said. Now, what triggered the metal detector was just a small part of the gauntlet. Most of what remains is an imprint, where you can see remnants of iron plates or lamellae. The imprint is so clear that Hegdal concludes it must be a gauntlet. Yes. Interesting. Fascinating. Yes. So, customs control. This is not the first discovery of weapons and war artifacts made in the harbour. Hegdal believes there might have been customs controls in the harbour. Weapons confiscations have happened in other parts of Europe, where customs officers have thrown weapons into the sea or even destroyed weapons over a certain length, he says. Now, due to the quantity of finds, Hegdal does not believe the weapons ended up in the seabed in the harbour by chance. We found many daggers as well as swords and axes. Clearly, these are not things that people simply lose. Finding so many weapons in the harbour suggests it was systematic. There must have been a reason they ended up on the seabed, he said. More discoveries. Archaeologists have made several finds at the bottom of the fjord. Some items have held up well, while others have succumbed to the ravages of time, much like myself. All the iron is completely destroyed, leaving only fossils. The only thing that triggered the metal detector was on that sword was a large bronze pommel. It was beautiful. The rest of the sword was just a rusty imprint, he said. It's interesting. Yeah, look at that picture over there. Look at this. Amazing. The archaeologists have also found more macabre discoveries in their excavation. The truly strange object we've found is a human arm, an upper arm bone gnawed by dogs. Whether it was dragged down from the execution site at Galligerberg and ended up on the ice or something else we don't know, he said. Only hypothesis. It's difficult to find out more about the origin of the gauntlet and how it ended up in the water. One hypothesis is that it might have something to do with customs. War equipment could fit into a pattern of weapons and long knives being thrown into the sea, but we don't know any more than that, says Hegdal. What are your thoughts on it? Love to hear from you down in the comments. Was it confiscated by customs and thrown into the ocean, thrown into the harbour? It's one way of looking at it, I guess. That's quite fascinating, isn't it? Considering there's so much of it, was a one-off, you could say it was like a drunken accident or something, but, interesting. Yeah. Now, with limited documentation from the Middle Ages in Norway, it's difficult for archaeologists to form a clear picture of what might have happened. Many Norwegian medieval documents burned in Copenhagen in the 1700s. Yeah. The city law for Oslo is not preserved. We haven't even found any regulations or documentation indicating that items were thrown into the sea. We only have all the weapons that we've found there, he said. Well preserved. God, I wish I was well preserved. Archaeologists have to work a little differently when excavating areas that have been underwater. The fact that things have been lying on the seabed is actually an advantage. On the seabed, everything just stays put. It doesn't get crushed, kicked around, or reused. Furthermore, most items lie in neat layers on top of each other. When we date things, we often have a clear strata to follow, says Hegdahl. Now, the layers are built up from centuries of mud and waste lying undisturbed. It's not like that on land. In the city, it's different. People have dug and shoveled and stacked things on top of each other and built houses over the ruins of older houses that have been pressed down. It's total chaos, he said. This is interesting. Few answers. How the glove ended up in the sea remains a mystery. I find it very difficult to imagine someone losing their gauntlet during a battle. If there had been an arm in it, it would have been much more interesting, but there wasn't. Yeah. Hegdahl does not believe they will find anything more to explain the discovery. If there had been anything else related to the gauntlet, we would have already found it. It's an archaeologist's dream to find the remains of some of the battles that took place out there in the fjord, but we haven't. So the best explanation we have so far is simply that someone lost it. You could call that bad luck, he said. There's the sword hilt imprint over there on this picture. That's fascinating, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, I've done a couple with underwater archaeology. It just fascinates me. To be able to find that, that's actually pretty cool. But can I ask if there are any archaeologists out there or anybody, what's their thoughts on it and how it ended up in the harbour? As I say, could have just been a drunken accident, or could it have been the customs officials going, no, we've got too many weapons here. We need less weapons. Chuck it in the drink. That's definitely a possibility. Fascinating. Hard to believe, isn't it? Before 1624, the area was part of Oslo Harbour. 400 years ago. God, Mother needs a refund of the school fees from the Catholic school. I can't add up. 1624, 400 years ago. My God, that's fascinating, isn't it? Absolutely fascinating. All right, well, my name is David. Thanks for joining me for another Studio 64 Science, Space and Tech News update. I shall see you in the next one. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you're up for it, drop a comment down below the video because I'd love to hear what you think. All right, take care. And as I always say, if you can't be good at it. And as I also always say,